Mudrunner and SnowRunner, the runner games, are near and dear to my heart. They are essentially truck-based driving puzzle games. How do you get from point A to point B with a few different objectives along the way? Expeditions takes that formula and adds more structure to it. Guardrails, if you will. It is massive, occasionally gorgeous, and a ton of fun. It's still weird, occasionally extremely difficult, and not for everyone. Let's break down this oddly wonderful title in the XboxEra review of Expeditions, a Mudrunner game. The big change in the game is right there in its name, Expeditions. Previous titles took place around cities for the most part, as you'd recover lost vehicles, build up bridges, and a lot more. Expeditions takes place entirely out in the wilderness. For 100 plus hours, you'll find ancient relics, plane crashes, more bridges, and it's a far bigger departure that both does and doesn't work for me. It works in giving a sense of exploration that could occasionally feel missing from previous titles, as you go out in these huge spaces to try and find upgrade parts using a metal detector, new climbs to earn in-game cash, and a whole lot more that is very fun. Where it occasionally doesn't work is in how sparse those environments tend to be. I mean, you're in the wilderness, so it makes sense. Still, I do miss that feeling of helping build up more of a living world at times. The version you get in Expeditions is saving up cash to build workshops, little stations, and more to help you stay out and about longer. There are a lot of vehicles and upgrades to unlock. Some are held behind story progression, while others litter the landscape waiting to be found. You can do this during missions or in free roam, and the Runner series continues to be one of the best podcast games out there. I had the game for roughly a week before this embargo and put about 45 hours in, barely getting a third of the way into the available missions. These are spread out across areas like Colorado, Arizona, and the Carpathian Mountains. There isn't a ton of variety in the scenery early on, as you do your tutorials in Colorado, but then Arizona looks kinda familiar. I loved my time in the lush forests of the Carpathians the most, and I used the various experts that each mission may require to explore the landscape and slowly build up my fleet of trucks and buildings. The struggle of moving through rough terrain is like 95% of the gameplay, and it is as good as ever. I started on PC, where the game looks and plays fantastically, before moving to Series X, where it runs great but has one big downer of a bug. Quite often, ground textures just refuse to load. It happens a lot. And unless you swing the camera around, it doesn't ever load in, and it's a bit of a bummer. That was the only real issue I ran into, though, as I slowly moved from point to point in a much more structured and hand-holdy version of a Mudrunner game. If you tried SnowRunner when it was on Game Pass and found it impenetrable, know that Expeditions may be more up your alley. You are given waypoints in the world for everything, with the challenge coming in learning how to move through each type of terrain and the best truck and setup for it. You can quickly jump in and out of the easy-to-navigate menu system at any time with little penalty. They'll let you know which type of truck is best for each mission, the difficulty, and exactly what items and experts you'll need. For those who love the series, it may feel a little too easy, and early on it definitely is quite easy. But after 10 hours or so of enjoyable content, the difficulty ramps up, and by the time I had reached a few hard difficulty missions, I felt right back in my mud-running home of how the ever-loving flip am I going to get up there style of thoughts. Your main gameplay mechanics are shifting gears, changing tire pressure, activating differential locks, and deciding when you need four-wheel drive as you attempt to preserve your gas, and there's quite a lot to it, and the game does a really good job of slowly feeding you how it all works. Depending on your vehicle loadout, you'll have an inventory of usable items that can help you out of a sticky situation, and sideboards to hold extra tires, repair parts, and more fuel. It's that same fantastic system carried over that requires a bit of forward thinking, but with more in-world options this time to help you out, so you're never truly stuck. This is baby's first Mudrunner in a lot of ways. It is the most approachable entry in the series that has always been anything but. One of the most common gameplay mechanics is just exploring an area. To do this, you can drive around it, use your drone to fly over it, or pull out your binoculars and perv on it from afar. Outside of the ground texture loading bug on console, the game is routinely really good looking. It lacks the civilization of earlier titles, which hurts the variety a bit. Trucks, trees, rocks, rivers, and more are beautifully rendered with a lighting system that captures a full day and night cycle as well. The game felt like it ran at a near-locked 60 FPS on Xbox with no other modes obvious to me. I do have a pretty beefy PC, and running at 4K Ultra I was averaging roughly 100 FPS, and it looked beautiful. I stuck with my Xbox for my playthrough, as there is no cross-save available. But if you have access to both, I would recommend PC for now, until they fix that ground texture bug. It normally wouldn't bother me, but it was an almost complete lack of any surface detail in a game where knowing what the ground looks like is of extreme importance. Sound-wise, the game has a bunch of generic guitar riffs that are a series staple. It's inoffensive during the menu screens, and the main sounds you'll have in gameplay are your engines, mixed with a bit of wilderness ambiance. The biggest issue I had by far on both PC and Xbox were the text prompts from your experts, telling you what was going on and where to go. Their well-written and crucial information was shown on screen for roughly 2 seconds before disappearing completely every single time, and it was maddening. I didn't see any settings to fix it, and hope it is something that they quickly patch at or post-launch. Wrapping things up, Expeditions, a Mudrunner game, looks great and is a more palatable entry in the series. It is still full of that truck puzzle maddening charm though, so both new entrants and fans of the series alike have a lot to enjoy in this over 100-hour-long title.